The Security Weekly News is live on Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 o'clock Eastern Time most every week. I try to scan and produce a quick look at some major stories to help you keep up with what's going on in and around the industry in a short format. Myself, Jason Wood, and other guest commentators provide greater insight every week. I'm Doug White, and I hope that you will look for the Security Weekly News in all of your favorite podcast catchers and subscribe for the latest content.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Check out a cybersecurity summit in a city near you. This series of one-day invitation-only executive-level conferences are designed to educate senior cybersecurity professionals on the latest threat landscape. We are pleased to offer our listeners a $100 off admission when you use the code SECWEEK23 to register. Visit securityweekly.com/cybersecurity summit to learn more. And now on to the news for this week. I think we should start just at the top and start working our way down and talk about the it's got me so distracted I'm stuttering. Microsoft shifting to a new threat actor naming taxonomy.
There's been a lot of discussion on this. Yeah,
this is the hot news, I feel like, of this week. And I haven't seen the discussions on this, Adrian. But when I read this article, I was like, I'm like checking the URL. I'm like, did I just get fished? Is someone playing a joke? Is it April 1st? Yeah. They're late to the party if it's April Fool's Day. Because I'm like, are they really being serious? And then I'm like, oh my God, I think they're being serious. They're serious about this, right?
That's everybody's reaction.
Okay. I thought it was just me.
I mean, like, the design is really clean. The nomenclature is really clean. You know, it not nearly as stylized and comic book adventurous like CrowdStrike. But did we really need another one?
Yeah. So I read this. We are shifting to a new threat actor naming taxonomy aligned to the theme of weather. I was like, wait. I got to read that again because I think someone made a typo. Microsoft stated they're shifting to a new threat actor naming taxonomy aligned to the theme of weather. The complexity, scale, and volume of threats increasing, driving the need to reimagine not only how Microsoft talks about threats, but also how we can enable customers to understand those threats quickly with clarity, with weather. They intend to bring
on with Lord of the Rings. That's in the public domain now, isn't it?
I mean, Star Wars. I mean, that's not public domain, but so it intended to bring better context to customers and security researchers, a more organized, memorable, and easy way to reference adversary groups, so organizations can better prioritize threats and protect themselves. We're supposed to instantly have an idea of the type of threat actor we're up against just by reading the name, because it's weather. And then,
I mean, I'll be honest, I read this and I had to look at the date to make sure it was on April Fool's Day.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. Now, I really think that we should have a theme song associated with each weather type, so that when we talk about it, like visit the webpage, like there's a song playing in the background. So like, I think that Storm should be accompanied by Thunderstruck by AC/DC, because I think that's appropriate. I think Blizzard should be accompanied by Led Zeppelin, The Immigrant Song.
Oh my flipping Lord. Oh, you're bad.
Now, I could not easily extend my analogy to many more classic rock songs.
Not necessarily classic rock. Like Sleet, North Korea would be like the goose stepping, like some military anthem or something.
Right. Like I came up with two that were pretty, I thought pretty good, and then I ran out of time, and I was like, so I'll leave this to someone else. It's an exercise for the listeners now. Yes, Mandy.
Well, so Russia, the associated name is Blizzard. And I'm wondering now, is that free Dairy Queen advertising for those that are actually using this? Or does Dairy Queen have...
Oh my God, that's bad.
But is it like... Russia. Is it also like, I don't know, it's very stereotypical. And some people get in trouble for being stereotypical. Like, is it Blizzard because it's cold and snowy in Russia? And is it Sandstorm for Iran because it's sandy in a desert? I'm like, oh, that's just, oh.
Okay, so groups and developers.
That's it. North Korea would be Imperial March.
Yes.
That's it. Trash Panda. That's it. That's perfect. Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Or Flight of the Valkyries.
Dun, 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 dun. Sorry. I'm sorry, Mandy. I apologize. Go ahead.
You don't need to apologize to me. I'm just trying to figure out this whole. So, as they're in development, that's about a group that's in development, meaning it's not already identified as a nation state. But if you're looking at like a threat has been identified, but you don't know the associated nation state, it's just a storm. Is that what it means?
It's just a
Yeah.
You know, wait. I've got an idea. Oh my God, I've got an idea. Okay.
Hello?
Hold for this idea. This is akin to understanding that you can also have beef milk, not just almond milk, okay? Why don't we use the names of the countries or the name of the group and the type of attack? I know, revolutionary.
Any example?
So if it's from Iran, you'd call it an attack from Iran. It'll never catch on. Damn it, you're right, Mandy.
It'll never work. It will never work. No.
I'm well, and you know, CrowdStrike won. They invented this game, right? Like they've already won it. So I don't know why you're going to go out and try and introduce another one. Like everybody, when they think Iran, is going to think Persian, whatever, like Persian kitten or whatever. You know, if you think Russia, you're going to think bear. You know, like this is a decade too late.
And it's stupid.
And
Let's be clear. And it's stupid. Because now I go, Sandstorm. What's Sandstorm? Hang on. Let me get my handy dandy reference guide. Oh, that's Iran. Okay, Iran, excuse me. That's Iran.
Yep, you're back.
Yeah, you're here.
Well, since it's stupid, should we move on?
Oh, yeah. You want to?
No, because this is kind
really
of interesting.
loud,
So do they stack them? I mean, if it's financially motivated, then is it Sleet, Tempest, Storm? Like, are we making up our own names? Like, he's just adding on? I mean, this is like those things that come up in the memes where, you know, make your porn star name based on your street address.
I think it's got to be. I think it can only be one. But what? Well, all of North Korea is financially motivated. So would all North Korean attackers be Sleet Tempest? I don't know.
Right.
It's going back to Josh's point. It's dumb.
Thank you, Adrian.
I think this is a beautiful thing for the Microsoft team that's doing it, that this would be really ramped up and there'd be a lot of showy things going on for the team that's actually using this day in and day out. And I mean that in showy ways, not that the team
I think marijuana and mushrooms are legal in Oregon. Is that okay? Now I'm ready to move
Washington
on.
State.
Washington State is it's Washington State. Sorry. So
Washington State.
Thank you for correcting me on my poor geography. Yeah, those I don't know. Whatever. You know,
you're close. I'm sure Microsoft has plenty of employees in
Oregon. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
And doesn't this still
I wonder if this was like a way for them to justify their employment. Dude, let's come up with like a whole new way of naming threat actors. Oh my God!
But first, Josh, let's organize a trip where we go on like a DMT retreat.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
It's a little bit less silly, maybe. I mean, they've got so they're using, like they describe with some adjectives down here, like how you split up the different groups. They've got Midnight Blizzard, Forest Blizzard, Aqua Blizzard. No, you're right, Mandy. These all just sound like desserts.
They sound okay.
Really weed or shrooms. Dude, I got the munchies. All right, what do you want? Let's go to Dairy Queen, dude.
I need a Sandstorm Blizzard right now.
Oh my gosh. And so then if it's only like affecting Android devices and you go through different, releases there and it is all desserts, and then you have to add in the Blizzard Tempest Storm gingerbread.
Look, sounds tasty. I'm sorry, but like
the last episode of Enterprise Security Weekly, I think we spent the first 10 minutes making fun of company names. So it's hard. Naming things is hard.
You guys heard that because my mute button is on my other microphone. Sorry about that. Anyway, car thieves are using tech disguised as old Nokia phones and Bluetooth speakers.
There was one, wasn't there one with JBL where they're using like a JBL speaker or something like that, and the headlights to hack cars?
Yeah. Well, the headlight is a thing. I let you guys cover that last week.
Yeah. I think that the headlight is just because it's close to the exterior of the car, and it gives you physical access to the CAN bus.
Right. Yeah. But this story, it talked a little bit about that, but more about how when you go buy this stuff on like your Telegram channel or dark web or whatever marketplace, that they're charging $2,000 for this device that you plug into the car and can unlock it and start the engine. But underneath the covers, it's about $10 worth of components, which I think is a great markup. But also, like putting it in a Nokia phone, you can also use the Nokia phone to break the window if you had to as well, which is a bonus.
Yeah. I love the photo because they have a photo of somebody holding one of these iconic Nokia candy bar bricks.
Yes.
And it's the fact that that's like the cutting edge of hacking a car is an old Nokia 3310 phone. That's amazing.
You can also use it to like hit the wrench to unloosen the lug nuts. I mean, you could run it over with the car and it'd be totally fine.
Throw it through the window of the car. Yeah.
But I think the tech is the same as what you covered last week, Adrian and company, right? Is that this is just, in reading this article, it didn't get into great technical detail, but from what, little I understand of hacking a CAN bus, it's unauthenticated messages. As long as you can get on that bus and send messages, you can control the car. And one way to access that bus is through the headlight or other mechanisms on the exterior of the car.
So in this case, this is assuming you can physically get into the car because they're plugging a cable into the phone then into the car. In
the first video, correct. Yeah. Which again is why it comes in a Nokia phone, so you can break the window.
Yeah, right? Problem solved.
Problem solved.
Amazing.
So, and this says that the only proper fix would be to introduce the cryptographic protections on the CAN messages.
Correct. Which I think it made it sound like, Mandy, that some manufacturers do.
Right, because it's saying that that's generally in the key management infrastructure on new vehicles. So I wonder, like older vehicles, because the guy who started this research, his RAV4 was apparently stolen by this or something similar a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it would make certain years very easy, very lucrative to then use this device on.
I mean, the answer is it depends. There's a lot of ways to unlock and or start a car depending on the make, model, and year. For example, we talked about the Flipper Zero, where you can start unlock a car, but it's only like certain cars. And then you got rolling key codes. So there's a lot of different scenarios here. I think some of the ones being sold were specific to Toyota and Lexus, which is interesting. So often
there were some for Maserati. They were specific for BMW, right?
So I wonder, are locksmiths, like mobile locksmiths and mechanics, is this dual use? Is there a legit use for this where they're using this trick to just help people get into their cars when they're just legitimately locked out of their cars or something goes wrong?
I think there is a legitimate, it's what we tell people and younger folks getting into our field that you should have permission. And just like lock picking, Adrian, like as long as you have permission from the owner of the property or systems are property, right? The property you're trying to hack into, then it's totally fine because you have permission. This is why we have pen testing. So if I give my mechanic or roadside assistance permission to do that, I'm like locked out of my car, I can't start my car, my key, then it should be totally fine.
Well, I think there would definitely be a limited use case for that legitimately, but I do like how this brings up that legitimate businesses likely have no use for a tool that is hidden inside of a phone.
Correct. The packaging is often what gets you in trouble. Yeah.
What was the thing? What was the technique Kia boys were using?
Oh, that was different. That was
different. That was the physical attack with the housing of
with the
a USB cord.
Correct. It was a physically putting
that was
the
a mechanical. That was a mechanical attack, right?
Yeah, physically putting the USB cord end into
so there's no immobilizer in the keys then? No chip in the keys?
In certain,
there's not.
In certain models, there was not. Correct.
As a matter of fact, in certain models,
cheap
you
as
can't
hell.
even get car insurance on them anymore.
Oh my God, that is so cheap.
Yeah, but like, what do you do? I mean, it kind of goes back to our TPM thing. You know, Yvonne's got a Dell laptop with a TPM that can't be fixed. Do we go back to what's the bar?
I'm trying to remember the name of the bar.
Club. It was the club.
Yeah, the club.
Right? That was the 90s.
Oh, the red one that you put on the steering wheel?
Yeah, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
Wow, we're all old because we remember those, by the way. Just a side note.
I remember eat them too.
I think I don't have one of those on my car right now.
Well, yeah. So to Josh's point, though, like countermeasures to someone stealing your car, the club was terrible because it was first it was a tubular lock, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And there's a lot of us that know how to pick a tubular lock. I don't know if you necessarily do. You pick? Is it a tubular? Is that the right term? Do you pick it?
Yeah. You can say pick.
The verb is pick. Okay.
I think that one was so bad you could pick it with a Bic pen.
Yeah.
You know, the barrel of the pen.
Yeah.
But
you shove it in there and it deforms.
I don't know if they put better locks on them or people, thieves just weren't great at lock picking, but they would take the steering wheel off. And so like they would have a steering wheel with them. They'd break into the car. They would remove the steering wheel with the club on it, and they would put a regular steering wheel with no club on it and drive the car away.
Oh my God.
But you don't even need the steering wheel.
It's actually easier.
The steering wheel. Once you take the steering wheel off, you just needed
a vice clamp. Yeah, vice grip.
Yeah, you just needed a vice clamp.
Right. And they would leave the steering wheel with the club on it in the parking spot. Just leave it behind. I don't know why you leave it behind. You leave behind evidence. I mean, I wouldn't leave it behind,
God.
but they would leave it behind. You come out, and then your car was not there, but your steering wheel with the club on it was still there.
Wow.
And that's kind of, the reverse thing, I guess, of people whose cars get booted and then they just take the entire tire off and put on a spare.
Yeah.
Right. Or there was the guy with he had the fake boot. Like it looked like a boot, but it really wasn't a boot. So they would just put that. It's like having the fake parking ticket.
Oh,
so
right.
Yeah, but they have
ones get booted because you looked like you were already booted.
It was like an inflatable boot, basically, and it would just look like it. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Hacking is so much fun.
I do think on this whole Bluetooth speaker, Nokia phone looking thing. First off, you're talking about them being $2,000. This article mentions them being up to 18,000 euros.
Yeah, they can go up to that much, right?
$1,000 for one of these devices. But I guess if you're going for Maseratis,
it's like what? Yeah, your return on investment. I don't know what a stolen Maserati.
One car.
I don't know what.
Right.
What someone out there knows. On average, like there's statistics out there. I bet, like on average, what car you steal, how much you can get if you sell it on the black market.
Well, for a long time,
the black market's the normal market.
Or it's the normal market, right? But that also you take the parts too. Like on the airbags are you could sell it for parts too.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, people steal it. But that was the thing. People were stealing the airbags.
Catalytic converters recently. Airbags 10 years ago. It's almost like a fad. It's almost like what will the fences buy this week? And I mean, the catalytic converters have been horrible recently. There have been entire parking lots denuded of catalytic converters overnight.
Which is amazing that I just leased a Tesla and I am not vulnerable to that attack.
No, but you can be like
but your gas cap but your charging cap can be popped.
All that
like anybody with a flipper,
Josh and Mandy, yes. The gas cap can be popped and it'll, I believe in the newer models, automatically close from what I've read. Go ahead, Mandy.
See the article from a few weeks ago where the guy just got in the other car and drove away.
Yes, with the Tesla. That was scary.
Yeah. So
there's that. There is that. But, they push software updates all the time. So, I mean, everything will be fine. I just firmware update for my car. What could go wrong? It's fine.
I'm hoping on these cars I hope they push software updates for the cryptographic encryption on the CAN bus messages.
Well, that's for cars. Again, depends on model, make, and year.
Right.
Of what can take an over the air.
It's only,
did we talk
right,
about the 90s? Like a 90s Honda is not over there updatable.
Yeah, but on the other hand, a 90s Honda also doesn't have an infotainment system.
exactly.
So it's not over-the-air updatable. It's also not over-the-air vulnerable.
Right. And likely has an actual key.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Try a push-button ignition hack on that sucker.
Right.
They'll hold the key up and go try again. Actually, no, I'm not wearing. I don't have my keys. My Subaru is 2005. It has actual keys. Okay, it has a 3-disc CD disc changer.
Ooh, is that in the trunk?
Disc?
Is that in the trunk or the glove box? Or?
No. It's in the
in the dash.
In the dash. 6-disc. Sorry,
No,
and I don't think I've ever actually. I know I did put a CD in it once. We went through a national park, Shenandoah, where they gave you a CD, and they're like, "Do you have a CD player?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." And I put the CD in it, and it does the audio tour of Shenandoah National Park. It was great.
That's hilarious. Remember we used to have them in the trunk? It used to be like a 12 CD changer, and they used to be in the trunk.
I had a
That
1990 BMW
was like
735 that had a changer in the trunk.
Just to Our younger audiences, CDs, they look like DVDs.
Oh, shut up!
DVDs are what we used to watch movies on. And before that, we had CDs, and that's how we used to listen to. Just to actually
Fuck you. Anyway. Seriously, you have to explain this to people now?
Yeah, you haven't talked to people who were born I don't know.
Yes, honey,
teenagers?
I said a bad word. My 4-year-old is telling me I said a bad word.
Your 4-year-old, but your 4-year-old definitely doesn't know where the CD. Well, your 4-year-old knows where the CD is because you have a CD changer in your car. So
I don't put CDs in it. I don't use it.
It's true.
Okay, wait. You want to know how old I am? I think we talked about this earlier today, but my first car, my 1979 Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser station wagon, had an 8-track.
Ooh. I just saw a bunch of 8-tracks at it was called Jimmy's Junk or something. It was a local used stuff place that my son took me to this weekend, and they had 8-tracks and records and CDs and DVDs and an Atari 2600 with games.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I'm waiting. I'm looking at Discord because I'm waiting for somebody to go, "What's an 8-track?"
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
now I am not that old. I'll just say, but we always had classic cars. My dad always building rat rods, rebuilding custom cars. So some of my first vehicles, I started driving at 10 when I was 10 years old. And it included a variety of things like a Yugo, an actual Yugo.
Nice.
A 1972 VW bus, a 1954 Cadillac, and then a variety of vehicles that had 8 tracks.
Yeah, so you were right at home with the 8-track.
I at least knew what they were. And then we also had a console inside the house from, the mid 70s that still took 8 tracks.
Yeah.
Parents were not, advancing in technology very quickly.
I think we should advance in technology more quickly and go to my story number 4 and talk about Linux rootkits, where this is I wanted to highlight this as a very well-written blog post series because it starts at a much more basic level than a lot of the articles I've tried to read recently, which is dive right into Linux kernel internals as if we're all Linux kernel experts. And although I've been using Linux for a long time, I don't consider myself enough of an expert to go just start reading an article that starts talking about advanced Linux kernel exploitation techniques and understanding it.
When was the last time you compiled a kernel?
Years ago. Like a long time ago.
It was Gen 2 for me. It was the last time I used Gen 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
2007. Pen 2?
Yeah, last time I used Pen 2, I had to recompile for something, and I forget what it was. And then I just whined about it to 0, and he did it for me. Because I screwed it up. I screwed it up so badly.
That's easy to do.
This one's pretty cool, though. I mean, it talks about looking at, if you were to build a backdoor in a Linux, one way to do it would be to essentially hook the signaling process in the kernel that processes receive to kill a process, to hop a process, those familiar with Linux or Unix are familiar with the signaling that you send to processes. They really just come down to numbers, right? Like they have names, but it's really just a number. Like kill-9 is signaled for kill, sig kill. So you'd say kill-9, like if you really wanted to kill something. So they basically did is hooked the signaling process in the kernel. So if you did kill-64, it would escalate your privileges to root. Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, nothing new or novel. Cool. Nothing new or novel. I just thought like that was cool, but I think more so than like new or novel in this 3-part blog post series, it's a good foundation that I've been kind of searching for, kind of brush up on that.
Is the idea that this would be kind of like a supply chain attack where somebody wouldn't notice the new signal?
It could be. It very much could be, Adrian. If you were able to put code inside of a kernel module, kernel driver for Linux, right, that you distributed, you could put code in there that hooked the signaling process and allowed someone to, hey, if I did kill-64, I magically become root. Well, it's not really magic. It's code in the module that escalates your privileges.
I wonder how many detection engineers would catch this.
Right.
Cool.
We should talk. Go ahead, Mandy.
Well, this article, because I really did enjoy reading this too, and I agree, incredibly well written, and I think a fascinating way to get into getting root from an already running process. First, I was wondering, like, what is your take on what would the skill level, what would the Linux competency level be for somebody to use this?
To use it to write it from scratch, a little bit of skill. To use it, very basic, right? Basically you would insert your kernel module or get your module inserted into the kernel, and then it would be backdoored, and then you just run the command. So I wouldn't say this is sophisticated by any stretch, man.
Okay. And then I do want to call out their use, the fantastic use of the word automagically.
Automagically. I love that word too.
Automagically. Yeah.
That's a word. I like that word.
That means I have no idea how this works.
Yes.
When I use
we didn't talk about AI a little bit. I didn't have a lot on AI in here. We talked about it on the call. Yeah.
Is a good one.
Yeah, Burp GPT.
I think this is a good example of where a lot of security tools are going to go. The way that they're using ChatGPT, integrating with Burp here. The best thing is to go down to the example use cases to get an idea of how it works. And you could easily see how this would work with Metasploit, with other tools. Because basically, when you put together your prompt, you're saying what it is that you want to do instead of clicking around in all the tabs. And, Burp Suite has a bajillion tabs and options and things like that. This is a much cleaner way of using it, where you just, in plain English, say what you want to do. You give it all the parameters it needs. So like the web app URL, the CVE number, like if you're looking for a particular type of vulnerability, request headers, response headers, request body, response body. So you set up all those variables, and then you just run it. And this is on GitHub. This is an open project that basically handles all the when to run Burp, when to hand off stuff to ChatGPT, and you get this nice readable output.
It's awesome.
It is.
I agree, Adrian. I think this is where it's going. I think people are kind of freaking out about the AI stuff right now, but I think it's going to be an augmentation.
A lot of positive.
Yeah, it's an augmentation of our tool set, not a replacement. Oh, and there was a podcast I listened to that gave some great examples, and the analogies escape me, right? But it's like any other kind of tool that helps you do stuff that still requires human interaction.
Right.
It's the user interface that is lacking in most hacking tools. How many people have said, "Oh, just go learn Kali, and you'll know how to hack."
Right.
And so we tell them to go learn Kali, and then 6 hours later they're crying. They're like, "I don't know what's going on. It's the command line. And I learned. I'll just read the man pages." And it's like, yeah,
exactly.
That's how we did it 20 years ago.
And now all that's shortcutted. So if you go to my story number 7, that's basically what my story number 7 is about, is about how AI can kind of change the process for the pen tester. Like all of a sudden, you don't need a directory, on your system with a bunch of PDF cheat sheets. ChatGPT is your cheat sheet now. You don't need to know all the command line switches. You just ask the AI for these things. And all of a sudden, you're an expert in some tool you've never used in enough time to be able to use it competently. Not be an expert, but use it competently during an assessment.
And this is what it was. And for the life of me, I can't remember which podcast I was listening to that had someone that was talking about this. But their analogy was, in the early days of computing, someone whose name escapes me created the spreadsheet program, right? Now, before the spreadsheet program, an accountant would go in and do all of the calculations. In other words, they would change one number and then manually go do all of the calculations to change all the other numbers in the accounting system. When the spreadsheet was developed, you could plug all those formulas in and change one value, and magically, automatically, all the other values in the spreadsheet would change. And people were like, oh my God, there's not going to be any accountants anymore. Well, guess what? There's still accountants, and they use a spreadsheet as a tool. That's how I thought it was a really great analogy to talk about how ChatGPT will help us in a lot of different fields, I think cybersecurity included.
I definitely agree.
Okay.
Plus, I think the use of AI being able, some people just have the skill and ability to formulate how they want to do something, but not be able to do these connecting parts. So being able to automate it by ChatGPT, by other AI extensions and stuff, I think would also give individual practitioners an ability to advance their skills, which is exciting and thrilling. Not that they are going to go by the wayside because the AI or any natural language learning thing is out there and being used.
I'm going to take it a step further, Mandy, and say that within a year or two, you're almost going to be unemployable if you don't know how to use these tools to improve your productivity.
I agree.
And the example I use is like, say I love working with wood. I want to go get a job at Gibson or Fender, some guitar factory or something like that. And I go in and tell them, no, I don't want to use the CNC machine. I'm going to route these by hand. And it's going to take me like 3 hours, whereas the CNC machine is going to take 15 minutes to do it. There's no way. Nobody's going to hire me and pay me the same amount as somebody who knows how to use the CNC machine to do this by hand with a hammer and chisel or, whatever tools, hand tools I'm going to use to route out the, where you put the pickups and the electronics and stuff like that in the guitar.
I'm going to push back on that slightly, Adrian, but just slightly. Bear with me. There's a special case here. There are, for example, Japanese woodworkers are still using hand tools, and they're not using, the power tools that when you go to a set of carpenters in America, they're using, portable planers and and et cetera. You get the idea. And the reason they do that is that they're using sort of a boutique market. When you hire a set of Japanese carpenters to build your house, you're hiring them because you want to glorify and show off what they're doing to the wood to build your house.
For physical things, absolutely. For physical things where there is a niche for artisans, absolutely. I mean, with food, with anything that can be considered a piece of art or, as an object that you keep forever, like an instrument that never decreases in value. That doesn't apply to software. No. And to
no, we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
Jobs.
I was just pointing out one teeny niche market. Forgive me.
No, it is, and that may apply to like on the art side of things, because I know this is impacting people who make video games, graphic designers, people who work in marketing. That they're dealing with the same thing, where their favorite part of their job was maybe starting with a blank page and coming up with a piece of art, but now they're kind of forced to use tools like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion because it just cuts the time down so much.
I wanted to talk about my story number 7, a remote code execution vulnerability in Google that they're not willing to fix. And I think the more I thought about this article, I think this is a failure in Python, pip, and PyPy, more in Python pip than anything else. So it's a pretty amazing story. I encourage everyone to read it. The synopsis is in package managers. This one happens to be Python. I think this applies to all package managers, right? You can have your internal repositories for software dependencies, and you can have external dependencies of software repositories. And in most of those, a lot of those systems, there may or may not be, and that's implementation specific, safeguards against dependency confusion. In other words, if I've got an internal package called Paul Software, I should point my update processes and my installation processes to install it from my local repository, where only that private repository is the only place that it exists. But if in a public repository, Mandy were to create Paul Software, there are certain circumstances, depending, again, implementation specific, where by default, it'll reach out externally and pull the external package down. And that depends a lot on configuration. The article goes into it a little bit. So I think the real, and that's been defined before. It's a known thing. But I thought the interesting thing in this article was that how they've discovered what the private package names were. Like they did this exhaustive search in GitHub to look at all the artifacts, specifically of large companies, and then look at references to packages that don't exist in the public archives to derive the fact that that was a private package, and then went out to the public archive, the public repository, and created a package with that same name, and then waited 2 months until someone
typo squatting,
kind of like typo squatting, but this one's more called dependency confusion, I believe, is the term that they used. Because typo squatting would be a public repository that I just create a similar name. This I'm creating the exact same name in a public. I mean, it's very similar.
Very, very similar.
Very similar. Yeah. So they waited 2 months, and all of a sudden, someone from Google was pulling down their public package that they were confusing with the private package, and they had put innocuous code in there that just made an HTTP request or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. And there's like a PyPy kind of thread on this issue of how much control should you have, or could you have, or do you have over which repository it checks first, and things of that nature, which I thought was also an interesting read. So this was really, really cool and speaks to the complexities and challenges we have with the supply chain when it comes to software dependencies.
And going after Google was smart, because just statistically, the number of employees they have and the number of employees they have that use a broad range of open source dependencies, there are a few other companies that are as good a target as Google to do this kind of research.
Yeah, you're basically just increasing your chances, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, really interesting story.
Speaking of increasing your chances, did you read through The Gambler Who Beat Roulette?
Oh.
Oh my God. It's a long read.
It's a long, I did not get through all of that. But
I did not get through it because I kept reading it, Manny. I don't know if you're the same as me, but in this regard that I was reading, I'm but just tell me what the hack was. How did they beat it?
It's 40 minutes to listen to the article.
Yes. It is a long, chronicles some really cool stuff, including, I skipped towards the end. I read bits and pieces as much as my ADD could tolerate reading this article, because I just wanted to get to the point and be tell me how they beat Roulette. And then I got to the part where they were oh, they said that they would play Roulette in a controlled environment naked to prove that they didn't have anything on. I'm well, that's now that's super weird. That's
oh crap. I read this article 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is about okay. I thought this was fascinating.
Give me a synopsis. ChatGPT, please summarize this article.
I'm doing that right now.
Idea is that
Josh GPT, summarize the article.
Sorry. Effectively, the idea is that it's if you take a look at a roulette wheel, you can divide it into sections. Okay, So you can say, there's what is it, 36 numbers, and then double zero, something like 0 and double zero in America.
Yep.
And I forget how many numbers it is. Forgive me. But the point is that I can divide it into sections. There's, you can, like a pizza, you can divide it into quarters, you can divide it into eighths, you can divide it into however many sections you want, whatever. All right. And if you have an idea of how fast the ball is traveling and in what sort of direction that it is when you spun it, with a computer-aided vision, you can actually determine which segment it's going to land in. Okay? And so if you can do that, you can then bet on it just for a few seconds after the ball has spun and when you do it. Now, there's also the fact that the wheels aren't perfect. Every wheel has flaws. So while in theory, the wheel is supposed to be absolutely random because the ball spins upon a zero friction path along the rim of the wheel and then drops down into one totally at random. That is absolutely not true. There is indeed friction, air resistance. There is variations in the finish on the wheel. It's glossier here, it's rougher there, and each wheel is of course consistent to itself. So after a few spins, you can actually narrow it down. Okay, if you can figure out how fast that ball is traveling, which a computer vision lens can do.
But it said they weren't using computer vision for this particular attack, Josh, did it?
Well, they time the speed of the ball and the rotor, okay? So they can actually do it, but it's a wearable computer.
Oh,
So
and one of the attacks was a wearable computer, but the people they chronicled throughout this article, they couldn't find any evidence that they were using any computer-assisted devices, is what I garnered from the article. But to your point, Josh, I'll go back to your point because it's very valid.
Yeah.
There was research done that MIT researchers in the 60s, there was research. A computer-assisted roulette was born in the 60s, and they put all these schematics. So there was like actual research on using electronics to beat roulette, and the results were kind of inconclusive.
It sounds like he basically went home, used a computer to analyze the data, and then the data showed him the patterns, and he learned to recognize the patterns.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, after using predictive technology thousands of times, they developed a sense of where the ball would land even without a computer, that it's like an athlete. So it came to, they call it cerebral clocking.
I see.
All that's needed is a drop zone and a well-trained mind.
And that's why Josh, back to your description, when they noticed on the CCTV camera footage that the folks that were winning all the money, I'm not going to say they cheated because the whole it's fascinating, but
the casinos are the cheaters.
They would place their bets after the ball was dropped, but before it landed on a number, because they were doing what Mandy was saying.
Adrian's now banned from Vegas.
Right.
Yes, they were doing what Mandy was saying, but they had to wait. There was a certain part of the roulette table. I have not played roulette, but there's a certain part of the roulette table that allowed you to place your bet once the ball was moving, but before it landed on a number.
Well, it looks like that was a few years ago, and then some just instituted that they would say no more bets before they dropped the ball.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that how you solve this problem? Although, yeah.
But there was also, it details a part about how it was simply an actual issue with one table where it was between the carpet and the substructure, I think, of the flooring situation, that there was something that was undetectable to a human that it moved. Mm-hmm. But it adjusted enough to create the drop zone that they could exploit that.
Oh, interesting.
By the time they busted him, it didn't matter. He was already...
They're gone.
Shitload of money.
That was the other interesting, like the criminal aspect of it was pretty fascinating as well, is if there's no evidence of cheating, right, or breaking the rules, and you've won the money and you've disappeared and they've basically hid behind lawyers, I don't think they were never prosecuted for that, and they got away with a bunch of money.
So isn't that part of using technology to enhance a physical person? So they were doing it externally, but that's what athletes, that's what professionals do. And if it's now become native to their personal body, to their skill and their know-how, is that really any different than somebody who plays poker all the time and seems to have all the luck?
Right.
So most everybody in this gig used a timer of some sort. They were timing the ball. They were timing the ball to see how long it took, and all they need is to eliminate a few numbers. So if they can eliminate one segment of the wheel,
yes,
the odds flip in their favor. Okay, that's it.
Right. That was
now, there's only one player, the one that offered to play naked, that they weren't sure if he actually used a timer or not. Okay? But that's it. That's the only one. And they don't know. They never caught him. So, like, it's... Yeah, they still use fax machines, Adrian.
Yeah. I mean, proving how somebody does it, like to take chess as an example, you know, like they still haven't figured out how that guy was cheating at chess, but it doesn't really matter because, like, statistically, they know he has to be cheating, so nobody will play with him. You know, and like in this case, like they're just going to kick you out of the casino. So, you know, hiding, if you win enough, like, you will get banned even if they don't figure out how you're doing it.
If you win more than someone else, more than everyone else, basically.
Yeah. So throw a few games.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how scam artists and fraudsters do it. They know the fraud prevention department of any company has like a certain threshold where like they're not going to look at any losses below that threshold. And that's why you see, you know, charges for $399.99 or 999,000, you know, 99 cents. They know where that threshold is.
Do casinos ban people who get Neuralink implants?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Well, I mean, thinking about this, like if people who start getting implants, like Neuralink, does that mean by default that if you have a Neuralink device, you can't come into the casino?
But it's a big question in sports. In sports also, like the I forget the South African guy with the prosthetics. You know, his prosthetics were better than human legs, and he was faster than somebody with normal human legs on his prosthetics. So yeah, it pops up all over. Anywhere you can enhance using technology. Trying to, you know, reevaluate what fairness means becomes a discussion.
That's a whole discussion I don't want to have right now. Let's put it that way. Jesus.
Way too late in the evening for that.
Yeah. Seriously, dude.
What were we talking? So, what do you want to go? Oh, Adrian had stories. Adrian
I have a fun one. Yeah. So my since we're talking about vulnerabilities. Oh well, actually, you moved on from the vulnerability.
I did. We can move back to it. There's no rules here.
Yeah, okay. So my number 9, APT28, exploits known vulnerability to carry out reconnaissance and deploy malware in Cisco routers. So we're talking about an SNMP v2 vulnerability.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
That was discovered and patched in 2017. So, I mean, I hate to be that guy. But
discovered. A patch was released by Cisco. Whether or not you installed that patch...
Right.
Remains to be seen.
You had 6 years. You shouldn't be exposing SNMP to the public internet. You know, do you deserve to get... I mean, nobody deserves to get hacked.
Yeah, I wouldn't say deserves, but
come on.
I mean, you know, someone left SSH exposed to the internet and got hacked recently. I wouldn't say, well, no, I deserve that, actually. Never mind, bad example.
But let me ask you a question. I know several companies that roll at least one patch cycle behind so they can test whether the patches work and all their systems work, especially after Oracle. They specifically one patch cycle in Oracle behind because Oracle releases 500 or 600 patches at a pop every quarter. Okay. What is too far behind? What is too far ahead? What is, oh my God, you're too far? Do you know what I'm saying, Adrian? Am I making sense?
Sorry, what? Oh, on patching?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds stupid, but there are legitimate reasons to delay patching.
So,
I mean, you can apply every single patch as soon as it comes out, or you could never apply patches. The answer, Josh, is somewhere in between.
So most companies I talk
if it wasn't so freaking stupid.
See, I guess I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad.
In the wind.
I'm not that bad at trolling. I was telling Boris I'm really bad at trolling. Like, I suck at trolling. I'm too nice to troll or something like that. But that was an example where I can be good at trolling. And it's usually with you
right now.
It's usually with you, Josh. Tell Boris you're proud of me. It's good trolling for once.
But yeah, a lot of companies I talk to patch their network devices quarterly, which generally, if you follow the best practices and you don't have your administrative interfaces exposed to the public internet,
right?
It's probably fine. It would have been fine in this case, for example.
As long as it wasn't quarterly in 2016 and then you changed to never in 2017.
Yeah. I mean, I don't wonder, this is how Mirai, the Mirai botnet got built, is exposed administrative services on IoT devices with default passwords. You leave it out there long enough, it'll get got.
Yep.
It'll get got.
Yeah. You can quote me on that.
You don't
hear about
go ahead.
Adrian's story 6.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So
ever since Gray Noise started and basically started categorizing all the crap that happens on the internet and putting it into buckets of good and bad and benign. Well, there's no good. There's only benign and bad, right? Like that's Gray Noise's primary function. Is tell me if this IP is doing bad stuff or not bad stuff. And now they're taking that to another level where you can say, give me a list of other IP addresses that are behaving the same as this IP address. And that's what they're introducing here. So even if they have it tagged as benign, if you know that IP address did something bad to you, now you can say, you know what? Block all IP addresses that have the same behavior as this one that I now know is bad. How cool is that?
So two things off
cool.
topic. Very cool. By the way, Adrian, very cool. But two things slightly off topic. Number one, Boris says you should take the Dave Marcus Troll Fail Masterclass.
Yes, I need that. I need that.
And
Sign me up.
If anybody has ever been to Sky Talks, Blue Knight is just out of the hospital. He just got his appendix and gallbladder out.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
I wish a safe recovery.
Aww.
We all do.
So that must have been new because...
yeah, it just happened today.
Okay.
Awkward silence.
Sorry, didn't mean to cause that. Adrian, I didn't mean to step on you. I apologize. I just found out. I'm like, oh, shit.
No, I think the Gray Noise thing is cool. They do some really cool stuff. They've been on point lately.
Oh, yeah. Damn straight.
On point.
There's some, it's interesting. I mean, again, I'm going to go a little off topic. Is it fascinating to you how research laboratories spring up and do some amazing shit and then just disappear into the wind? Like, how many have we had over the years?
I think it's hard to keep consistent with research like that because it's oftentimes very opportunistic. You got a company, they've got researchers. I mean, they're still doing research, but they come across something and it's that perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
It gets a lot of attention. But then, they're still doing research and finding stuff. Now, some of that stuff being very close to this particular use case in my day job, sometimes you work directly, with vendors, and you may have to sit on that for a long time, or it's just internal, kind of disclosure work kind of thing, and it gets fixed. Maybe you get credit, maybe you don't, depending on the situation. But you're right, Josh. A lot of times, make a lot of noise, if you will, about something, and then not so much, and then maybe the circle comes back around later on where you do find another perfect storm. That's definitely a thing.
And
well, does anybody remember when Nick Percoco ran Spider Labs?
Yes.
And that was the coolest place to be for a while. Now I think he's CISO at a cryptocurrency.
It's Kraken.
Yeah.
Kraken. Yeah. There's a couple different models there, though. You can have research that's essentially an extension of marketing, right? Like it's demonstrating that you have this ability to do cool research, and that helps your brand be known. And then there's applied research, which is where the research is all focused on stuff that can go directly into the product, can become a feature, can be useful. And that's how I would. So like Thinks Canary is an applied research based company. Gray Noise is applied research. Right. Like everything they work on, like IP similarity is one of like 3 major features they just added. I didn't even mention the other 2, but Run Zero, which used to be I've already forgotten the old name. I guess they did.
They did a good job with their marketing. Rumble.
Yeah, Rumble. Applied research there. I mean, the speed at which these applied research firms are adding like new features to their products is breathtaking. Like especially with Run Zero, it's insane. Like nothing comes even close to their ability to do asset discovery and tell you what that asset actually is and what it does. But yeah, I think that's where you see stuff disappear though, Josh, is the more traditional research firms, like in the spirit of like the Bell Labs, where you just work on whatever the hell cool ass research you want to work on. You're not worried about whether it's going to lead to a patent or whether it's going to turn into a product at any point. And those are cool in their own right. But as soon as the market goes down, that's where you're going to find your layoffs, a lot of your layoffs and cuts. But
also there's a lot of academic research too that's being done all the time. And that's kind of a different bucket in a sense that it just may be ahead of its time. And I think it could be a really cool talk. I'm not saying I want to give this talk because it's a lot of research, but it'll be a really cool talk to go back through all the academic papers that relate to security and pick out the ones that were ahead of their time and made the most impact, like rank them, right? Like the ones that we read initially and we're like, that's really cool, but like, largely theoretical, and like we're not seeing that in the wild for a while. And then all of a sudden we do, years later, see that in the wild, and we can trace it back to, and oftentimes it's not just one research paper, oftentimes it's a couple of research papers, right? The second research paper on that topic, or I mean there could be multiple, right? But there's typically like a second research paper that builds upon that. It's like, oh, now we can go do that. Oh, I have an example. Another podcast I listen to, I think it's Click Here from Recorded Future. They do a great job with that one. But it was the names escape me. But of course, you've got the Satoshi paper that came out 2009-ish. It's after the
which is on all Macs apparently.
Which is on all Macs, which is another thing I learned this week as well. So you get the Satoshi paper. Then building upon that in the sense of tracking down criminals using cryptocurrency, you have the researcher that I can't remember her name, but she's featured on the Click Here podcast. And she basically bought things on using Bitcoin and used that data to fuel research on how to track people. And then the person whose name also escapes me, that created chain analysis. Chain analysis.
Yeah, chain analysis.
Chain analysis. Thank you. Chain analysis, like obviously read the Satoshi paper, read the other paper about tracking, and was like, oh no, we can actually do this, and created what is now a very successful company, who basically put itself on the map with Silk Road.
More than a successful company.
I mean, like a wildly
kind of
understatement.
The linchpin in law enforcement being able to track payments, right?
Yes.
As they go through tumblers and stuff like that.
Right. It was there was two big ones. It was Silk Road and
started.
Josh, what was there was Silk Road, one aspect of that story that I find really interesting was the DA agents that was a DA agent that was stealing Bitcoin. Stole some Bitcoin.
They were stealing either Ethereum or Bitcoin as they were confiscating it.
Right.
And they got caught because it was like, it's coming from this wallet, idiot.
Right.
Okay.
But then there was what was the Japanese exchange that got wiped out?
Not
M something. I can't think of it.
I don't remember. So many exchanges at this point have been wiped out and just destroyed. But I mean, everybody that uses Wasabi or CoinJoin going, oh, they'll never find me. It's just math, people. The federal agents are weird in certain ways, but they are amazing accountants. They will catch you.
Cryptocurrency is just math.
Are you thinking of Mt. Gox?
Yeah, Mt. Gox. Thank you. Mt. Gox. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I keep a list of all companies destroyed by cyber attacks, and that's on it.
Yep.
Except what's really funny is, you know, that Mt. Gox, what was left in their reserves after they closed down operations, because of the growth in Bitcoin price, they actually regained all the value that was stolen and then some, repaid as much as they could, and still walked away with a crap ton of money. It's kind of impressively weird.
It's amazing.
But
so I want to say just to give credit where credit is due, I thought the Click Here podcast in its most recent 2 episodes chronicled all that stuff we just talked about in like a super smart way. Also, she did a panel with Andy Greenberg is on the panel. Is Andy Greenberg and the IRS agent that was involved in Silk Road and Mt. Gox, and the founder and CEO of Chainalysis. And Andy's new book is based on what's called Tracers in the Dark, is Andy's new book, which now after listening to those podcasts, I'm like, now I kind of want to listen to Andy's book because I'm like, that was kind of fascinating. So there you have it.
It's amazing stuff that, you know, when you talk about how between the large language model generative AIs, ChatGPT, between blockchain and cryptocurrency, between, you know, all of these fads that are happening and going on, and don't get me wrong, like AI is not just a fad. It's going to be a very big sea change in how we do things for the next, I don't know, 10 or 20 years. But it's fascinating that, I mean, I had a call today with a company where they were like, hey, so how long have we got to adjust to these generative AIs? And I went,
you're too late already.
You have a month before it's in Office 365 and every single component of Office 365, which all of your people have access to, are going to have access to it.
Yeah.
So you've got a month at most.
Yeah.
And that's assuming you block Skype and Bing right now.
But that's, we're going back to our conversations we had earlier today too, is that, this is tying it up nicely, it's already available as a tool. Like, sorry, Adrian, what was that? I use it all the time now. The thing that summarizes a YouTube video. It's great.
Oh yeah. ChatGPT for YouTube is just the name of the Chrome plugin. Yep.
If I can't remember that
Chrome
name.
Plugin? Holy shit, that's awesome. Are you serious?
You go to a YouTube video, Josh, and you click the little button, and it goes off to ChatGPT, and it comes back, and it gives you a synopsis of the YouTube video.
So let me
tell you. GLASP then. If you're going to talk about that, I'd say use GLASP or try that one as well.
GLASP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so short story on well, so I discovered that on Product Hunt. Product Hunt's a great place to like subscribe to their AI stuff, and you get an email with like all the new products that are coming out that are leveraging AI. That's how I found out about ChatGPT for YouTube. But the first time I used it, where it really kind of drilled home how valuable it was, they were asking me if I could come on Paul Security Weekly a couple weeks ago. And this is when we had Nico Weisberg.
Nico Weisman.
Weisman.
So we were having him on, and I saw he had given a lot of talks. So I decided to try this thing out. You know, these are all 60-minute, 45-minute full conference talks. And sure enough, it gives me this nice summary of what his talk was about, the high points of what he discussed. And then after doing like 6 or 7 of these, I realized all these talks were in Spanish.
Yeah.
Like he was delivering these in Spanish. And I looked at the transcription, also in Spanish. And GPT doesn't care. Like it only outputs in English, but it understands a ton of languages for input. So it didn't even slow it down. Like it knew to take this huge 60-minute Spanish transcription and to give me an English summary.
But here was my question. So Adrian describes all this to me, and I think it's interesting the talk was in Spanish, So like, Adrian, how do you know that plugin isn't just lying to you? How do you know it's just not generating like a random thing? Because if you didn't watch the 60-minute video, even if you did, well, I mean, you speak a little bit of Spanish, a lot of Spanish. Do you speak it fluently?
No.
Not enough to understand a technical talk.
No,
in other words,
I can survive in a Spanish speaking country. I can order food. I can find like I can do all the things I need to do. But yeah, I'm barely functional.
Yeah.
¿Dónde está el baño? Una cerveza, por favor.
Yes, there you go. That's a good combination too.
More than that.
But so I asked Adrian, I'm like, how do you know it's accurate or not? And Adrian's like, oh, I ran it through some of the talks that I gave, and it was pretty good.
Yep.
Like, oh, that's a great way to check it.
So the only downside is it does give a short summary, so it tends to miss a few really important points from each talk, but still, everything it gives you is good. But yeah, I mean, that's a big point with AI is you've got to like assume it's lying to you until you know it does. It isn't.
Yep.
And lying they call
hallucinations.
What's the term? Hallucinations.
Yeah. And I want to add to that. Assume it's lying to you all the time, even when because it's not consistent. It can lie to you at the drop of a hat. So one of the things I tell people is you have to have human validation and verification of any answer that's important to you. Even if it's 3 years of consistent yes, and we're good and we're fine, until we get rid of the hallucinations, until we figure out how to fix this, the AI's desperate need to connect the model it has in its head, metaphorically speaking, with reality, check everything that's important to you. Every answer that's desperately important to you,
only an issue. That's only an issue for certain use cases. Like if you're asking it to tell you about events that happened, or asking for something it might have learned about in its training model. That's where you have to worry about that. But if you're giving it a blog post and saying, I want you to rewrite this blog post in the style of, some author or something like that, not really much of an issue because you're not asking it to come up with anything new. You're asking it to transform text that you've already written. So much less of an issue with some use cases compared to others.
I want to hone in and expand upon a topic we were talking about with Yvonne. That is my story number 18, because I really want to underscore how I don't agree with this at all. And this is Nicholas Stark writing this up about some Ubiquiti. There's actually 3 CVEs that are post-authentication command injection vulnerabilities in Ubiquiti software that Ubiquiti is quoted as stating in these CVEs that the vendor position is that the post-authentication issues are not accepted as vulnerabilities. And I think going back to Yvonne's point, if we're making the distinction that it's a binary, either you're authenticated or not, and if you're authenticated, you can do whatever you want, that this isn't a vulnerability. And I'm kind of coming around to that. But again, it depends on what their intention of this is. So if you're running Ubiquiti, that means anyone with credentials can do anything that they want. But I also, the flip side of that is, if the web administration interface is meant to administer the wireless system, whatever it is, and not to have command line access, and the web interface is providing you with command line access, then that is a different level, maybe not authentication, but a different level of access to the device. It's interesting.
Yeah, so I've got a new tagline for Ubiquiti. We bring you the best products and the worst security takes.
Yeah.
And the worst customer service. Don't forget the customer service.
Yeah. I mean, I own a bunch of their stuff. I'd probably still buy a bunch of their stuff. But God,
yeah, of course. I use that stuff all over the place. I have everything of theirs.
They piss me off so much.
You guys are just,
I wish your stuff didn't work.
You just keep going back to that ex-girlfriend that's a horrible relationship. You just keep going back.
No, seriously. Let me ask you a question. What other enterprise-grade wireless hardware am I going to put in my house and workshop? Like, am I going to pay a subscription for Meraki?
Just what Josh is saying there is the sex is good, so he has to keep going back.
That's one way to put it.
Sorry.
saving grace is they have their
Oh my God, Adrian, look at Discord.
I saw it. Yeah, that's pretty good.
What are they doing to you in Discord?
They
They
made
did a poem.
Somebody said make a sea shanty about Adrian, and it's to ChatGPT. I'm assuming, or Google Bard.
Oh my God, can somebody do that to me? That's awesome.
You
Well,
can
yeah.
do it to yourself.
I was going to say, this is going to be
I've
his
got ChatGPT
all-night.
open. Screw this noise.
Then you don't
Yeah.
have to.
Wow.
Then you don't have to go back to your ex-girlfriend. Just saying.
Just make sea shanties about yourself. Distract yourself.
That's great. Thank you, Dimitri. Made my day.
Anyone still using Macs? Adrian, still a Mac person?
No, not for
framework.
personal stuff. Not in a while. They made a lot of decisions that really drove me off the platform. One of those is just continually like forcing you to use an iPhone. Like all the cool new features all require you to have one of their other devices. But I do use one for work. So on any given day, I use a mix of Windows, Linux, and Mac almost.
Wow,
every
you're
day.
all over the place.
That's how I like it.
It's interesting though. Like, I think there's a lot of us that like. I think the lack of freedom annoys us about the Apple platforms, with locking you into, like you said, all of their tech. Like you got to be like either all in Apple or not, or it's just a hack around it. But Red Canary actually introduced a Mac monitor, which I thought was interesting because I think that's one reason why I'm glad I don't use anything in the Apple ecosystem today. It's Apple has this walled garden approach to security where they don't put a lot of documentation out there. They don't put a lot of open stuff out there. They don't
Their
allow
employees can't talk about it either.
and their employees
You
can't
don't
talk
see-
about it. Yeah, how many people from
You don't
Apple?
see any Apple employees
Nope.
talking about the latest security feature they worked on. Nope.
And even former employees are still, they can't talk about, they can only talk about what's been made public by Apple in talking with people who used to work for Apple, right? So that's kind of interesting. So I think we really struggle with how do we gain visibility? And I think this goes back to Yvonne's point of we want all the details so we can defend ourselves. And Red Canary has made an effort in this one to basically come up with a sysinternals procmon, basically, for Macs. So it gives you files, metadata, logins, and a whole bunch of stuff, which is good. But again, it's going to be very limited because of the walled garden approach. So if you run a Mac, curious to see what people think about that. Put it on your work computer, Adrian.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder how it compares to OS Query for Mac.
Yeah, OS Query is really good. I think we sometimes underestimate how much data that can give us, right?
Well, that was a similar goal with OS Query as what they. I mean, this is EDR, right? Like the way they're describing this. This is what EDR
Correct.
was originally created for.
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of an
free forensics, basically.
Right.
Which later on became used for like real-time detection and response.
I wanted to go back to the supply chain as well, and like how much do we trust Google? So I have this.
What you said does not compute. What'd you say?
Yeah, right. But so I have this thing where you've heard me talk about it before. I update my Linux systems, and there's a Linux systems that I use and manage. There's a mixture of Arch-based to Debian to Ubuntu, and in all of those cases, when you run an update, it pulls down software from the internet as a whole. Like, how do I trust? I can't trust that, but I don't have much of a choice but to trust it. And so what Google has announced is called the Assured Open Source Software Service, which it claims aims to bring a trusted source of secure open source packages in the deps.dev API, which provides access to security metadata for 50 plus million open source package versions. Now, while I don't want to inherently trust Google, if I had to pick someone to take on a project of this magnitude and do it correctly, it might be Google, right? And Google itself uses a lot of open source software, has contributed to open source, so I think they're in the right spirit. Put their creepiness aside for a moment. Maybe go back to the day when they used to say they aren't evil, and then stop saying they aren't evil anymore, which is concerning. But I thought this was an interesting service. I haven't used it, but they claim to do fuzzing, scanning, and security testing of curated packages and reports that found vulnerabilities. This sounds like more of a software play than it is I'm putting software on my Linux system kind of thing.
In terms of trust, this is the company that created Google Project Zero to just benefit everybody broadly, and they found as many bugs in Google stuff as anything else. So,
right, it's true. So, I mean, Google's a big company, and there are pretty big pockets doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, the people behind this have to use this
They're
stuff
idiots.
also, personally.
What's that, Josh?
They're idiots. The oh my god.
The what?
Sorry, they're idiots.
Google?
Yeah.
Oh, expand upon that.
You're talking about story 7, right? Just to be clear.
My story 7.
Yeah. Okay. They're fucking idiots.
No, not my story 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, because that's the one I was reading. It was Google, so I must have got
this is
confused.
14.
I'm sorry.
This is 14.
Oh, yeah. In story 7, but this is a great point. It's all because it's all Google. Story 7, I don't think we ever finished saying that once this person found the vulnerability in that open source, the package rather, the dependency issue, that Google refused to fix it, and they said, "But we're not fixing this," right? They weren't.
Right.
How does Google fix it? Like they didn't. So it could be remote code execution on a analyst workstation or employee workstation at Google. And Google's like, we're not fixing it. But how do you fix it? My thing is the fix is in Python and PyPy, or in pip. Right?
Right. They don't.
What's really funny is wait. With your story 14,
yeah,
they're allowing people to use the same packages that Google uses and secures. Except that they don't, because according to story 7,
right,
they don't secure them because they're allowing people to call the wrong package manager, which I don't know, how many times have you ranted about package managers, Paul?
A lot.
And a lot. Oh my God, a lot. Jesus, we're getting tired of you and package managers and the compiler that compiles the compiler.
The compiler compiles the compiler. We have to go there too. It's required.
But the point is that so if with the assured OSS, would that bleed over into potentially calling a dependency from a public repository rather than the private repository, which would then allow remote code execution if you so put that code in that public repository, in that software package? In other words, this stuff is worthless. Ta-da.
What's worthless?
The assured OSS.
Wait, explain again why it's worthless?
Okay, so I'm Google. I'm saying, hey guys, I'm going to let you use the same crap that I use, the same stuff that I use in my workflow. Okay, these are packages that I've tested extensively. They are awesome. They are tough. They are secure. Right? And you go, oh my God, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. So far, so good. And I deploy them, and you deploy them because I allow you to pull them from my repository. Right? Same version I'm using, etc. And because I allow other people to pull them, now the packages and dependencies and updates that these packages and assured OSS applications depend on are now public. And instead of going back to the Google repositories for updates or a dependency or whatever, what if, as per story 7, I set up a public repository with a public version of the update, the dependency, the package, and I put malicious code in it?
It's only part of
all of assured OSS.
Right. It's only part of the supply chain issue or issues. Right. It's just one.
I mean, that's why the Apple Store and the Google Play Store by default don't allow you to use other package managers than the primary one.
Oh crap! Now we come back to where the walled garden is more secure.
Yes, we do.
Sorry,
We complain about Apple. I know, but I can't dispute that. It
prevents this specific scenario.
Yes,
Your
it
story
does.
number 7 scenario. Yeah.
And so the problem is that we have companies saying we're going to get assured OSS. To me, that sounds like, hey, it's awesome, it's assured, it's golden, you're good, it's secure. And you know what you do to the person that tells you anything is 100% secure? You kick them out of your friggin' office because they're an idiot and they're wrong. So what we just said is Google just called themselves idiots.
And it's hard to come up with a great set of solutions for this, right? Because as you point out, Josh, this is a multifaceted problem when we talk about software supply chain, firmware supply chain, hardware supply chain, whatever.
And where do we learn about these things? I mean, we've had to learn about them through agonizing study and reading god-awful amounts of articles and listening to Paul rant about package managers. Jesus.
Yeah.
Just screwing with you, Paul. But I mean, are there any courses on this? Is there anything out there to teach about this? Oh, I need to write a course, don't I?
Come to my talk at B-Sides Charm, which I forgot to plug. It'll be about how to protect yourself against the supply chain. I'm not saying I got all the answers, but based on my work at Eclipsium, all the interviews we've done on supply chain, all the conversations and articles we read, basically going to summarize that into a talk of here's how we can try and work to secure the supply chain problem for yourself, right? For your organization, perhaps, and explore the defense.
Discord people, are there any courses out there on this stuff? If you don't know, that's cool, but if you do know, throw it in there. If not, I think I need to write a course.
That's a huge opportunity. For sure.
Paul, you want to write it?
I'm already writing another class that I haven't disclosed publicly yet. When I'm done with that one, it might intersect.
I'll be working. I might be working on this one. We'll talk. All right.
Yes.
So, yeah,
I'm not stepping on your toes, am I, Paul?
No.
Okay.
I think assured OSS is pretty awesome, and I think there's not a good reason not to switch to it for most people because they're doing a hell of a lot more than most of these other package managers.
And I will say it helps.
No, I agree with
Adrian. Yeah, because it helps. It's like ChainGuard. ChainGuard has their own repositories of Docker containers.
Right.
That are really good.
ChainGuard has some controversy.
Interesting.
I'm not talking about it right now.
But, well, it comes down to who you trust. And do you trust, a container repo that puts out containers with hundreds of vulnerabilities or chain guards that have very few? In that aspect is very similar to what Google is saying. Rather than go out to random repos, come to ours, at least we're looking at the packages and doing some diligence to make sure that inside of those packages there aren't vulnerabilities or issues.
Yeah, I mean, they can provide assurances at scale that other people running other package managers just can't. Just don't have the experience to do, don't have the staff to do, don't have the budget to do.
Correct.
So yeah, it's kind of like what the White House cybersecurity thing said, that basically the companies that can bear the cost of fixing a lot of these problems should be the ones bearing the cost to fix it.
Right.
And this is an example of that.
But it speaks to my story number 8 as well, which basically it was repo jacking, right, is the attack. And they talked about hijacking Arch Linux packages, but this could apply to any package. Like if you read this article, like what you're coming with is like the thing that allows repo jacking is really how you manage, monitor, maintain, and configure your GitHub account. And so it's and GitHub has deployed mitigations. You're just going to get the people who maintain any of these packages to adopt that. If you go to Google, like they're going to do that, right? And you're going to get it from Google, but they're going to do that. So that mitigates some of the issues that we're talking about with supply chain.
If you had just asked me without context what repo jacking was, I would have told you it's when the repo man gets carjacked.
I was going to say, maybe it goes back to our car hacking story. Is that another legitimate use case for the devices that can open and start the cars? Is your repo man? Your repo man's buying them on,
or you're the victim of the repo man and you're trying to get your car back.
right. That would be an illegitimate use case.
Yeah.
Lord.
Because if it's not yours and you take it, that's stealing.
Yeah. So again, this is just like another variation on this like typo squatting. Like basically you're taking advantage
Right.
of automated software, not thinking about like, is this a safe place to get this? Is this as safe as it was the last time I updated it? Just not enough. Like wouldn't code signing, when you pull from a repo, isn't there some kind of key exchange that should help with some of this?
Uh
Like it can't help if you go out and you just misspell and mistype the name of a package and you
Correct.
install it. That's fine. That's on you.
My story number 8 is the name changing feature, the preservation of the old name. Like if you change your GitHub repository name, it preserves your old name, and the attack has to do with with that preservation. And they're basically using that repository namespace retirement, right, is the feature. So basically using that to hijack the repo. So I don't think when you pull down software from GitHub by default, if there's a key associated with it in a Linux repository, there is, right? You're correct in that sense, Adrian.
Yeah. And there's a reverse issue of typo squatting as well. Like, do you remember when Equifax announced that they were hacked back in 2017? And then they said, here's the website you need to go to find out if you were affected and sign up for identity protection. And they misspelled the name of their own domain, and a security researcher went out and registered that domain and put up a website.
What did that website do? It didn't just redirect, did it?
No, he asked for. No, it didn't. He asked for sensitive data, and then when you tried to hit the submit button, it just gave you like a JavaScript pop-up that said, this isn't the real website. The actual website you want to go to is this. And like it was intended to be very public, and journalists were all over it. And it I think satisfied the goal of the researchers to educate.
Right.
That you really got to make sure you're putting the right domain name in that press release when you send it out to 149 million affected people.
Right. Wow. Any of your stories you want to cover, Adrian? Any more?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's just some neat tools in here. There's the Living Off the Land Drivers project that was announced. It's basically a collection of stuff you're likely to find on people's systems that you can use to escalate privileges and run things.
That's awesome.
Just nothing huge here, just a lot of little interesting ones. Crypto Clippy is interesting. It's this class of malware that basically monitors the clipboard. And in this case, what they're looking for is, like crypto wallets and transactions and stuff like that. And basically, this class of malware will swap out or copy or exfiltrate stuff as you put it in there. So you're trying to do like a crypto transaction or something like that, and it's gonna pull a fast one on you in memory.
So I didn't get a chance to drop stories in, but I do have a few. I'll throw them in Slack. Hang on. There's a fun one. Do you remember the NSO exploits that came out in 2022? They just got analyzed by Citizen Lab. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
So it's in our Slack channel. So the Citizen Lab, which is actually a pretty decent group of people,
Yes.
analyzed the NSO group exploits and found out that they had 3 iOS 15 and 16 zero-click exploit chains, used them against civil society targets, so civilians, targets around the world. They named them interesting ones: Find My Pwn Your Home, and Latent Image. And they were evil exploits. Like zero-click, don't need to do a damn thing, two-step zero clicks, different processes, HomeKit and iMessage were the big ones. They're like, as fast as Apple tries to fix things and lock things down, remember, well, how pen testers started chaining medium exploits together instead of using the criticals and highs, because they knew that nobody fixes mediums because nobody has the bloody time. Well, that's what NSO was doing as well in 2022. They started chaining their exploits together, targeting various features and processes inside the iPhone. So, kind of terrifying. They worked with various different Mexican groups and non-governmental organizations in Mexico, because a lot of this was used in Mexico.
Yeah, there's a whole story there.
Yeah, it's really ugly. Like it's ugly. There are significant numbers of people that died because apparently of what NSO did.
Yeah, there's a whole. I think it's almost book worthy at this point to chronicle the NSO group and Mexico and that whole story. Right, like I've heard snippets on various podcasts and articles here and there, but like there's a whole huge story to unpack there.
There's in this article that's hang on, I'll throw it in Discord as well. There, it's in Discord as well if anybody wants to read it. It's unbelievably terrifying. Like 43 kids disappeared off a bus. Yeah, no comment.
Yeah, that was in I think it was Click Here that did that.
Was it?
Was.
Maybe.
Hold on. Guacamaya. Mexico spyware in secret military intelligence unit. Yeah. Citizen Lab shows Mexican army brought and systematically deployed Pegasus spyware against ordinary Mexican citizens, set up a secret special military unit. And there was a shooting. People got shot on a bus or something like that. Josh, it was part of that story.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole Guacamaya was like the rebellion. They were like the rebels in Star Wars, right? Rebelling against the Mexican government. Basically to try and out there was a hacktivist group, right? And that's the group that stole 25 terabytes from military installations to help garner proof. But like again, like I think
that the one? Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole story there. It's super interesting. Yeah, and Citizen Lab was involved in all that.
Damn. That's just crazy. Damn. Anyway, but it's fascinating to see what NSO, and by the way, just to be clear, don't work at NSO. There's a lot of people that if you work at NSO, they will never hire you again, ever. They are, hell, you can work at the TAO for the NSA and get hired. But if you work at the NSO, like, that's just wrong. They sell to some evil people. And, anyway. But that whole story is absolutely friggin' terrifying. Like it's crazy terrifying. I do have one, and I didn't even know how far to go with that. It's just ridiculous. I'm going to throw one more story in that I thought was hilarious and funny. So we'll take it on a slightly lighter note. So during 2022, 2021, end of 21 to 22, and end of 21 to end of 22. So for about a year. You remember bulletproof hosting?
I do.
You remember that term?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was hosting that you could use for spam, hosting that you could use for, malware, whatever. It was hosting that didn't, like, the abuse at email was basically a joke. That was their joke file for the week. Oh, look, somebody else is complaining. But what's interesting is if you use a system that is not allowed to be centralized, there's no abuse. There's no abuse at email address, much less anybody that cares. So IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, I'm sure you've heard of it, Adrian, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, which is a little ambitious. I don't think it's gone to any other planets yet, but okay, whatever, we'll let them live. Yeah. It's being used for massive amounts of spam and malware hosting. It's being used for massive amounts of file sharing, supposedly anonymous, even though IPFS does have, just like the blockchain we were talking about, where it's, you can track back, it's just math. So IPFS is being used because people conceive it as, or think of it as, absolutely anonymous, decentralized magic, and it's not. It is difficult to get anybody to take you seriously if you say, hey, there's a problem, somebody's attacking me from an IPFS system, because there's no centralized authority, there's no recourse. That's legit.
Right. I mean, that's the downside of decentralizing all this stuff that's really hurt, I think, crypto and Web3 stuff from catching on entirely. There's a lack of consumer protection, and like who's in charge of preventing abuse on all these systems? And when you decentralize, that becomes a problem, and that was an unsolved problem when they designed all this stuff.
My favorite was when I was at a seminar, a virtual seminar about NFTs, and I was there just because I'm like, I got to see this shit. Like, this is going to be friggin' funny.
I totally understand.
And so I'm like,
you were at Cyber Walmart people watching.
Dude, yes, exactly correct. Oh my God, you got it so right. So I'm there at this NFT conference, and there's artists there talking about how they really hope to make money off of it. I respect that. And there's people going, yeah, I'm going to flip these NFTs and make hundreds and millions of dollars, man. I'm like, popcorn.
Cyber Walmart
artist
people
that goes, and then there's one artist that goes, and I have this burned in my head because it's so perfect. He goes, so I've already caught somebody making an NFT out of my art without my permission. Who do I go to complain? And I couldn't help myself. I went, what part of decentralized do you not understand? There is no recourse.
Yeah.
And
wait, how does IPFS differ from like a torrent?
Well, that's interesting.
There's some, well, yeah, no, there are definitely some similarities. Yeah.
Right? Because you got
it is, because a torrent gives you,
torrent's peer-to-peer.
A torrent's peer-to-peer, but a torrent is point to multi-point. I want file X. 14 people have file X and are available to me, so I get pieces of them from each of that file from each person, from all 14 people, okay, or 40 or 500 or whatever it is. And so while I can put up simultaneous streams to all 14 people to keep pulling pieces of the file. So I'm getting it from 14 different places instead of one place, okay? That's torrenting. So far, so good. IPFS is that not only is it that I can get it from multiple people, because you still can, but each specific file, that person doesn't know they have it necessarily.
Oh, interesting.
And the file is actually broken up into chunks. The chunks are encrypted and then sent to multiple nodes. And I may be getting this wrong. If anybody knows that better and I'm stupid, let me know. But the file, the specific file is broken up into chunks. Each chunk is encrypted, sent to various nodes. The nodes don't know that they have it. And so it's basically just an identity number. So you've got a piece of identity number X? I do. Okay, here, I need it. Cool.
So torrent and onion routing had a baby.
Oh my God, that's actually correct.
You were spot on, Paul. Like thinking of it as BitTorrent is you don't really need to go any further than that. It's similar enough to that's the best way to think of it.
The problem is that you don't know what file you have.
Right.
So you could have something
legally
illegal.
That could be problematic. I could see. Yeah.
You could have something illegal and you could have something really bad illegal. And I'm not going to name it.
Yep.
And you don't know that. And you wouldn't know that unless and until somebody knocks on your door.
Yep.
And that's a problem.
What were we talking about with IPFS?
Oh, yeah. Threat actors rapidly adopt Web3 IPFS technology.
Right. Yeah, because it protects this, like it's a good place to put stuff, right? Highly available, secret, encrypted.
Like cryptocurrency, torrent, and onion routing.
if I'm part of the, of IPFS, I can't malware scan the stuff that I'm hosting because it's all chunked up and encrypted, right?
Right. And you can use it to send content as well. So I can send content that until it gets pretty close to you is encrypted, which can be a phishing email or whatever.
How naive was Web3 and all this stuff?
Jesus, dude.
I mean, like it's just such a wide gap between the brilliant stuff they're doing and just maybe it's just because they're moving so fast. Nobody thought, hey, we should throw some abuse cases at the wall and figure out how this stuff is going to be misused and subverted.
Yeah, but that's because that's a lot of
security is last thought.
It is. It's not unique to Web3 stuff, to crypto stuff. You're right, but
that's torrents.
But it was almost by design here that they ignored all those potential issues.
Yeah, but it's like torrents, onion routing, and cryptocurrency. With the good comes the bad use cases, right?
Well, and when there's no central authority, tends to be a lot more of the bad than the good.
Oh, and that's an underlying theme when we talk about the supply chain and the walled garden versus open, right? The price to openness and freedom is also, you get a lot of that malicious behavior and abuse of that openness and freedom because it's not as tightly controlled. But when it's tightly controlled, you're locked into an entity that controls that, like Apple, as an example, right? You get a security benefit. There's a graph in there that there's a yin and yang of, freedom versus walled garden kind of thing. We've pulled in that thread a bit lately, right, on the show. So
that's why, as Apple, you charge some minimum fee for people to be able to put something in the store, is because just by charging, it's not that they need the money, but just by charging that fee, you filter out a lot of crap that you probably don't want on your platform.
Right. And so true.
Paul, I found a story for you.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it. Did you see that?
No. I saw it. Well, I saw it.
It's in Slack. I'll throw it in Discord as well. I apologize. I didn't have a chance to get these into PPWorks. But the basic idea is that a lot of people use Java cards and Java pieces of hardware, Java-based pieces of hardware for HSMs.
Yes.
And
I saw that story. I didn't get to it.
Okay, and there's unpatchable HSMs because you can't patch an HSM. It's a hardened piece of equipment. And if they have a problem and they're having problems, it's not that your private key will be compromised, but your private key may disappear, and that's not cool. So they're literally having there's a few different cases, and they're listed in the article where the Java will mouth.
This is from Hardened Vault, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read that this week.
Oh, dude, it's a great story.
So safeguarding private keys are often interested in Java cards. Java card is a smart card with hardware implementation of cryptographic IC.
Yes, so it's effectively a black box HSM, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so you can't touch anything on it, but you can get a computation performed and get an answer back. Yes, this is a legitimate key. We can make a connection. We're good. Okay. So far, so good.
Yep.
Except the problem is that, and there is user programmable up to a certain point, and then they lock. Okay. It's really resource constrained, and it's really, really delicate to work on. Okay. And the NVRAM if you use it enough times, like if you free up once you lock the Java card, it's locked. But you can unlock it by wiping it, starting it from scratch, factory reset it effectively. However, well, that NVRAM only lasts a few times. If you use this HSM for, let's say, projects, and then try to use it in production and it fails, you lose your private key. That may be not a big deal. It may be in the data center down the hall. It may be a huge deal. It may be in a data center tens of thousands of miles away. Okay? And so it's ugly. And there's a specific Java card, the where the hell is it? J3R110 from JCOP. It's a manufacturer, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they can't do it. They can't free up the variables. Like, it won't free up the variables. So it keeps using up memory, more and more memory. And then eventually it leads to out-of-memory errors. And you have to reinstall it, factory reset it, reinstall it, and it's not good. So, and there's another variant of the card, the J3R180 in case 2, mm-hmm. that the pin code didn't revert to the default initial value, the factory default value, which means you can't configure it. So you have to reinstall everything, and basically the idea is that these things can malfunction so badly that it destroys the card effectively. And so you lose your private key. Again, could be not a big deal. It's right here, no big deal. I just grab another one. There are not huge amounts of money, no big problem. But if it's around the world, you got an expensive plane trip.
Right. So make multiple backups of your private key on IPFS, is what you're saying.
Maybe not. But it's kind of interesting, and I thought you and with Eclipsium would be interested in this one.
Yeah, I didn't. It did come across. I just didn't have a chance to read it this week. Yeah, Hardened Vault puts out some good stuff.
Oh yeah, they really do, don't they?
Awesome.
Sorry, that's the only stories I had. I apologize.
No, thank you. That was great. Yeah. You guys got anything else? Anything funny to end with? I've been sucking at getting like a good funny story to end the show with on a light note.
Well, I've got some, but they're for my show tomorrow.
Oh yeah, don't do that. You've got more than you've got
squirrel stories on you.
You've got more. You do multiple squirrel stories on ESW, Adrian?
We've had as many as 4 ones. Let me see if I can burn one. Let me bring up Instapaper.
Yeah, burn one. Or just talk about it anyway with a different group of people. It's fine. Or give us a teaser, and we'll make a couple of jokes and we'll end it.
Yeah. So
wait, hold on. Does it start with Florida Man?
No. Well, where is this guy
located? It might.
I don't know where this guy. I don't know where he lives. He could be a Florida man.
All right, let's just say
no.
It's Florida Man. Okay, so Florida Man.
Oh no, he's Dominican.
Dominican Man. What did Dominican Man do?
So Nintendo hacker forced to pay company 25 to 30% of earnings for life.
What?
So this is a story of Gary Bowser, who's famous for, basically pirating Nintendo games, like enabling pirating.
Wait, isn't that so funny that his last name is Bowser?
Absolutely, that is
the irony is not lost.
Like, that makes the story 100% better.
Yep.
So yeah, he got he was sent to jail basically, and I think now he's getting out of jail, and he still has to pay back like this. I forget how many millions of dollars, $4.5 million. And basically the story is about like, hey, this seems egregious, for what this guy did, but he did own or earned a total of $320,000 from basically selling the ability to run pirated games on different Nintendo consoles.
I've always wondered how that works. I see a lot of Facebook ads. Hey, buy this little gaming system, right? And a lot of times it could even be just like a embedded little system that is an HDMI adapter, right? And you plug that thing in, and look, you can play all these arcade games, Nintendo games, and whatever on it. I'm like, how are you how are you getting away with the licensing? And every game is licensed differently.
It's made in China and they don't.
Yeah, or it's made in China and they don't.
They sell it until they can't, until they get the legal notice to stop.
Yeah.
And yet Nintendo's always gone pretty hard against people with ROM sites, with any kind of sites, even hosting emulators. Like they've always been pretty harsh and really gone after folks doing that. But this is probably the most extreme case that I've seen. But if you come to B-Sides Knoxville, May 12th,
yes,
Travis Goodspeed will be talking a little bit about how you could defeat early protections against ROMs being dumped and stuff like that. Specifically by using acid to decap the chip and photography to photograph the chip, using microscopes to photograph it. And he wrote a piece of software that will literally read the bits and bytes off of that photograph when you feed it that photograph.
That's crazy.
Oh, he's brilliant. Would you give him a hug for me, please?
He's not a hugger, but I would.
Would you shake his hand and call him neighbor for me, please?
Yeah, there you go.
I miss him.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. The whole ROM game in video game thing is almost like whole documentaries about it and stuff. The whole piracy, licensing. There's a whole. I think Kevin Finisterre might have come on and talked a little bit about that on the show once. You have to go back through the archives.
At one of the first talks at B-Sides Knoxville, I think it was the first year or the second year, we had this brilliant, all his talks were brilliant. But this one was they've released some games for vintage systems like years after the console's not, nobody's making games for it anymore. I forget the name of the game, but it was basically a Kickstarter game. And, most of the people were doing the Kickstarter to get like the ROM version of it that they would run in an emulator or something like that. And they might have released versions on Switch or something like that. But they actually released it on a Genesis cartridge. And it was the most secure Genesis cartridge ever released, like had epoxy poured over the chips and everything. And his whole talk was about how he defeated it and managed to dump a ROM from that Genesis cartridge that was produced in, 2011, 2012, something like that.
So I said that I was at it wasn't a consignment shop. It was basically an establishment that sells used stuff. I mean, there's everything from power tools to video games to furniture to pans. Like they had cast iron pans and stuff. And I took a picture of that stack of games.
A thrift store, basically.
Yeah, so it was basically like a thrift store, which there's another thrift store. But this one was kind of like a independently owned thrift store. And I took a picture of the stack of the Atari 2600 games. And I asked my social followers, I'm like, what was your favorite game? And like everyone's like, I got their Defender, I think was one of the ones that was big amongst people. And one person gave the best answer ever. And they're like, E.T. was the greatest game.
Yeah.
And those of you that know video game history, and if you don't, I'll let you a little secret, E.T. for the Atari 2600 is heralded as the worst video game ever.
You couldn't finish it.
It was the biggest flop video game, right? Of all time.
Couldn't beat the game because it was that buggy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Biggest flop. Which E.T. was a popular movie back in the day, for sure. Spielberg, the whole thing. There's a ride at Universal, the E.T. ride, and all that stuff.
Oh God, that's right. There wasn't there?
Yeah,
I forgot about that ride.
There still is. Well, a couple of years ago, I wrote it, Josh. Are you
serious?
It's still there. It's still there in the original Universal. Yeah.
No shit.
Yep.
Jeez.
But that I was laughing hysterically because I was like, oh, I remember there was a really cool documentary, I don't know if it was on Netflix or not, about video game stuff. One of them was and talked about E.T. That was a big flop. Well, cool.
So this, if you ever come to Knoxville, the story you're describing, Paul, we have one like that. Like imagine a warehouse that you would build airplanes in.
Yeah.
But had the stuff that you were talking about.
Right.
There's a place in Knoxville called McKay's that is a must-visit place if you're interested in old books, vinyl, CDs, tapes, electronics. Like they've got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and like I'm not a big used or yard sale thrift store kind of person, but there's a few things on my list that I will pay attention to and sometimes buy. One is vinyl, because I like vinyl. I think vinyl's really cool. And to find the original vinyl, I think just sounds so much better than anything that's being pressed today, like on vinyl or any digital music, certainly. Like, it's just something cool about it. I like cast iron, any kind of cast iron cookware, because it can literally, I mean, have you ever seen the ones where the cast iron pan is buried under dirt on the side of the barn and they dig it up and you can like totally restore it and it's perfectly fine. Like, I love that about cast iron. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Our small egg pan is from the 1800s.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And also like audio gear, certain audio gear, like
Right. They've got that. They've got instruments and audio gear
like
too.
Instruments, speakers, amplifiers, headphones. A lot of that stuff actually sounds better when it's older because it's broken in. Like, broken in audio.
And,
tubes are awesome. Yeah, like that kind of.
They hadn't figured out how to make it cheaper yet. Yeah.
Right.
On the other hand, Adrian, would you do some security work and tell them to fix their damn website?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're talking about that.
You can't get to it because it's using SSL, not TLS.
But the cool thing about this place, the
it's
coolest
vintage,
thing
Josh.
is you don't have to use money. So you can just grab some stuff off your shelves you don't care about anymore. You take it in there, you hand it to them. They give you a ticket with a number on it. And then there's monitors all over the place. And when your number's up, you go and they tell you, here's how much in cash we'll give you for the stuff you brought in. Here's how much we'll give you in trade. And they give you another little ticket that has the amount of money that you can use to spend in the store.
That's really cool. So you can basically trade your junk for someone else's junk.
Yeah, like I went in there, got rid of my entire VHS collection like 15 years ago, and walked out with an Xbox and a bunch of games.
There you go.
It was great.
That's awesome.
All you had to do was wait 20 years.
And that's an original Xbox.
No, that was an Xbox 360 back then.
Oh, okay. Someone made some kind of mod. I don't know if I covered it on the show for the original Xbox. Like some kind of mod chip for it that allowed you to play.
Oh yeah.
Like a really super advanced mod chip. I was like, that's really cool.
I remember people talking about getting it chipped like it was a big deal.
Oh, there was the original mod chips, but this was like a newer chip that unlocks the entire original Xbox platform for you to just play all kinds of games on it.
Yeah, people would put that's where that media console came from. Like
XBMC. Yeah.
Yep.
Because there was a vulnerability in a game. What was the game?
Oh, it's always a game. Yeah, I don't know.
What was that?
It's usually something dumb that nobody would ever play.
Right. I can't find it easily, but yeah, there was in the original. I remember my friend he'd saved that game because it had the vulnerability that allowed you to put XBMC on your original Xbox.
Crap.
No, it wasn't.
It was because
crap.
there was a flaw in the game. And you could use XBMC for Xbox.
Microsoft is taking it out of the internet.
Crap.
What was the game?
I know what you're talking about. There was a flaw because you could. There was like a parental. There was a menu thing that would go to a hidden developer menu or something, and you could.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Something like that. I forget, but it was good.
And it was in a specific game. Someone somewhere is yelling it into the. Someone's at the gym yelling the name of this game repeatedly.
Everything I'm finding is just using files on a USB stick. You're prepping a USB stick.
I did this pre-2007 because I was working in university at the time.
Oh wow!
And it was the original Xbox, and there was a game, and it had. I thought it was some kind of buffer overflow. Maybe not. Maybe it was a hidden menu.
There have been games that have been used to jailbreak consoles, but
someone knows.
I don't know if Xbox was one of them.
somewhere.
Remember when
We'll
the
report
Navy
back
had a supercomputer made up of consoles?
Were those PlayStations?
Was it Xbox?
No, it was
PlayStation.
PlayStation.
Yeah, no,
It was PlayStations. Yes.
It was PlayStations.
Yep,
And
PlayStation
they had, because you could,
2s or
you could-
3s?
I think it was.
remember, but it was the ones
threes,
you could load.
right?
You could load Linux,
on, and then they broke that at some point,
Yeah,
and
they
people
did.
got mad, and they hacked it.
And it was a hardware thing. It was the original hardware revision. You could install Linux on it, and they even gave you the version of Linux. They had their own Linux distro.
Yeah, they supported it until they didn't.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
And also backwards compatibility with older PlayStation games went away also with the newer revisions,
right.
which sucked. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for tuning in to Retro Video Game Weekly. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.